Hey, y'all. Look, the NBA All-Star Game may have changed their format. One thing we have not changed is Mike G stopping by on Wednesday. And you know what? This format works out, doesn't it? Thank you for stopping by, Mike G.
Thanks for having me.
Speaking of hoops, what an incredible win for Auburn. Once again, the Auburn Tigers step up to a big test in Tuscaloosa. This is one of the games we had talked about circling on the calendar. Auburn survives an absolute war against the Crimson Tide. Mike, just your overall reaction to what happened in Tuscaloosa.
Look, this was the biggest game of the year, Rex. 1 versus 2, first time in SEC history that two SEC teams have met as 1 and 2 in the country, and boy, did Auburn not disappoint. The question in this game was always going to be, could Auburn score enough points to keep up with Alabama, or could they limit Alabama enough offensively to stay in this game? Both those things happened. Now, I got to tell you, I was a little impressed by Alabama in a game where they shot 39% from the field, Rex. They still churned out 85 points.
That's wild.
Insane, right? But they did shoot 35 free throws. So the free throw disparity looked a little closer at the end of the game, but mostly because they were intentionally fouling to try to stay in the game at the end of the game. This was an outstanding performance by Auburn. Johni Broome, Miles Kelly, Denver Jones, Chad Baker, all these guys showed up. And you had 2 guys foul out. Chad Baker fouled out. Dylan Cartwell fouled out, and you still won this game by 9.
So when you have those 2 big-time, big-energy guys foul out, find a way to win. This is the depth we've been talking about. Again, Johni Broome, let's talk about him first. He's the headliner.
Yes.
National Player of the Year candidate for a lot of us. Already is, but again, Cooper Flag does exist out in Duke. Lot to say about him. But Johni, there was one part that got really scary. It looks like he aggravated that ankle again. The shoe was off for a little bit. Do you have an update with how he's feeling, or is he good to go for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think he's fine. I was able to talk to him at the women's game on Saturday. And look, it's going to take a lot to keep Johni Broome out of this final stretch. Auburn has a chance to do something historic, Rex. And look, if they were willing to insert him back at what was clearly 70% versus Tennessee earlier this season, I didn't see anything Saturday that would keep him out of future games. If you're Auburn, you want that regular season title in the SEC. You want that this year because the winner of the SEC regular season, guys, is likely going to be the #1 overall seed in the country this year. And if you win this conference in this year, they're calling it the greatest single season for any conference in the history of college basketball. You're going to be the #1 overall seed. You're going to have the easiest path to the Final Four, and that first round site isn't going to be way out west like last year when you got Spokane, right? Auburn would be looking at Lexington, Kentucky, in Rupp Arena, or in Raleigh, North Carolina. So it's important, I think, that they close the season strong, and Johni Broome's going to be a big part of that. There's no way you're keeping him off the court. You've already seen Johni at 70% is good enough to carry Auburn because at 70% he carried them versus Tennessee, and they 100% lose that game without him.
Absolutely. So we heard Lexington and Raleigh. What I heard was drivable for the Auburn family. Look, they showed up in Spokane and they showed up in New Mexico.
I went to Spokane. Look, I don't want to do that again.
Wild, because there's no really direct way to get to Spokane. So it's insane how well the Auburn family will travel. Now you put them in the Southeast. Good luck to anybody who has to face the court. Let's talk about this. You said something right there that really caught my ear. The best single season for any conference. The SEC has been absolutely gone from top to bottom. I guess big picture-wise, could we expect more than 5 teams to go to the dance from the SEC?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a minimum of 10 teams.
Wow.
Yeah, so talked about this with my guy, Dave Shoemate over at SEC Unfiltered on our show on Monday. We aired it today. Talking about how strong the conference is. There were fringe teams at the bottom like Oklahoma and Georgia. Georgia had a strong case. They slipped inside the top 25 at one point, but the conference schedules are so brutal that for the big dogs to stay at the top, the guys in the middle at the bottom are going to go on losing streaks here at the end, and I think that's what's happening to Georgia. Auburn still has to play Georgia again in Neville this season. They beat them in Athens already. But look, at the end of the day, I think that you've got 10 that are a lock.
Gotcha.
Right? And, after that, you've got a few that will be on the bubble, and that will depend a lot on what happens in other conference tournaments. So for those of you who don't know, if you win your conference tournament, you get that automatic qualifier.
You're in.
So when someone who is outside the bubble wins their conference tournament, it knocks a qualified team that is firmly inside that net 68 out of there, right? And that happens every single year. It's going to happen to somebody in the SEC this year. I would expect 10, maybe 11 this year.
Basically, the SEC tournament is going to the dance at this point. Speaking of the SEC tournament, Mike, is this pretty much Auburn's to lose?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So the committee, and when I say the committee, I mean the NCAA committee, has shown us every single year that they do not care what happens in your conference tournament. You are what you are at the end of the regular season going into the NCAA tournament, Rex. So we saw a couple of years ago Texas A&M be on the bubble, go on an epic run.
That run was crazy in Tampa.
To the SEC tournament final, and then missed the tournament. And everyone cried foul, and year after year we see this. So if you're Auburn, yes, you want the whole sweep, and you don't want to go into the tournament on a loss. But at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world if you don't win that tournament. I think that the regular season crown is the more coveted prize in this scenario because it guarantees you that #1 overall seed, and it means you closed your season on a strong note. Auburn's going to make the tournament. That's not in question, and nothing that happens in the SEC tournament is going to change that, Rex. So that's where I've always felt that is. It's nice to have that, and look, for everybody who's not in a position like Auburn or Alabama, winning that tournament means that you are going into the tournament on a heater.
Right. It is a gauntlet. It's a mini gauntlet before the big game.
Yeah, Auburn did it last year and got bounced in the first round versus Yale. That's why I'm not big on SEC tournament results.
That's fair. Now let's go back to the game here a little bit. Again, Johni Broome, phenomenal performance, even at 70% being rate. Chad Baker-Mazara finds himself in these really difficult situations sometimes. Now, he did foul out, but there was this one incident in the crowd where, look, shoving happened. Someone shoved him. Apparently, Chad Baker was made bad guy. What can we take away from that?
Programs have to send a message to fans. When you accept tickets for courtside or behind the goal or anything close to the court, you accept the responsibility and liability that comes along with sitting in those seats, Rex. So if a player falls on you, outside of clearly helping them up or if helping them off of you, you should not put a hand on a player ever, because these athletes are testosterone-driven machines at this point in the game, and we all know how fans can get. So when you put your hands on a player in that moment, we will be quick to vilify the player if something escalates. But I think that fans that put their hands on players should be banned for life and should not be allowed back in the arena ever. And there was a guy off to the left or the right in a pink shirt, and he reaches over, and even if you were trying to make a case that he was trying to help him up, there's no reason for you to do that. Don't put yourself in that situation. He didn't fall on you. You were well out of the way. And there was just no reason to do that. And for it to happen to Chad Baker of all people, I think it was just like, come on, man. They're looking for a reason. The referees are with him to escalate. And he ended up getting a flagrant that ended up being his 5th foul and fouling him out of the game.
I really think it's kind of, maybe not to the certain degree because of this other player's track record, but it is like a Draymond Green situation. Okay, 10's going to be involved in something. And unfortunately, Dylan Brooks, I'm a Houston Rockets fan, the villain, he's kind of embraced that role. But look, 10 is going to be looked at a different light. I'm glad Chad Baker's okay. It could have escalated to a worse degree, but I think you brought up a good point. If a player falls on you, look, again, they're full of adrenaline. It's a rivalry game on the road. Just be as courteous as you can, but you don't have the right to go above that line. But let's talk about another player. You mentioned Denver Jones, another guy who stepped up big time. This is a guy who had one good game and then has a bad game, and then has a great game, but now he's finding a rhythm here. What did he show you in Tuscaloosa that he can provide to this team?
Look, Denver Jones is one of the best defensive players in the country. The fact that we're not talking about him in the conversation of defensive player of the year is crazy to me. He created a torture chamber on the court in Coleman Coliseum on Saturday. And look, keeping Mark Sears in front of you is no easy task. They did it to an extent that they were able to limit Alabama offensively and win that game. Denver Jones was a big part of that. So, yes, he had the one bad game against Florida, but if you look at everything that's happened around that, he's been playing at an elite level. I asked Bruce Pearl about Denver Jones. He looked me straight in the eye and says, I'm not worried about Denver Jones, and looks like he was right. No reason to worry about Denver Jones. He has more to offer than just shooting threes. Yeah, he can play defense, and this team really hangs their hat on that defensive intensity. Going into this matchup with Alabama, I said it, this is about the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. That is Alabama's offense, which is the unstoppable force, versus the immovable object, which is Auburn defensively. The immovable object won, and look, it was, I think, the number 1 team in the country, proved why they should be number 1.
Right.
They should have a little bit of grace, Rex, if they lose another one to sit on that number 1 perch. Auburn enters their 6th week at number 1.
6th week at number 1, a whole lot of quad 1 wins, which means, again, you have a lot of cushion. We have a couple more questions here for you. We could talk about literally every player on this team at extent, but one player that you mentioned, 3-point shooting, and you mentioned earlier, Miles Kelly.
Yeah.
Dangerous weapon, almost at times a safety valve, or he can be a spark plug for, he hits a 3 and all of a sudden Auburn's on a 10-0 run.
Yeah.
What did he show you in Tuscaloosa, and how important is he going to be heading into March?
Super important. A couple of years ago when Auburn was number 1 with Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler, we said this. We said Jabari may be Auburn's most talented player, but Walker Kessler was Auburn's most important player. This year, I think Miles Kelly is Auburn's most important player.
Interesting.
When you need a big shot, when you need to end a run, at the ends of games, Miles Kelly can step up and drill a 3 from the logo like it's nothing. He is one of the best shooters in college basketball today, an absolute steal in the portal if you're Bruce Pearl. And it's impressive that they've been able to go out and get kids like Miles to buy into this system, knowing that they're probably going to give up minutes, Rex, because the balance of minutes, the only person playing, consistently over 33 minutes a game is Johni Broome. Other than that, these guys are having to sacrifice minutes at least to some extent, and Miles Kelly provides you that comfort that when the game is on the line, he can not only hit a big shot, but he can execute a play as designed in the moment with all the pressure on him to get you the win. We saw him do it versus Tennessee. He's done it countless times this year. Miles Kelly is one of the best shooters in all of college basketball.
So I love that. Maybe Johni Broome may be the face, but the most important player, Miles Kelly. To get you out of a tough situation. We'll wrap it up here, Mike. So as we head into, we're in the second half of February. March is right around the corner. What can we expect for Auburn?
I think you can expect them to win the SEC this year. I think they're going to close the season strong. They've still got, I think, 4 quad 1 opportunities left on the schedule right now.
The fact that they still have quad 1 opportunities is insane.
Yeah, if they win all 4 of them, that would get them to 18 quad 1 wins in the regular season. That would surpass 22-23 Kansas, who ended the season with 17 quad 1 wins. They ended up playing something like 25 quad 1 games overall. It's crazy that year. Yeah. But this conference schedule is unprecedented, and it's marked by the fact that all these SEC teams are going to make the tournament or are in the conversation to make the tournament. So Auburn has navigated this beautifully. We're sitting here mid-February, and the Auburn Tigers only have 2 losses, one to Duke and the other to top 3 Florida right now, and one of those is in your conference. So the other has the other candidate for National Player of the Year in Cooper Flagg. I just think that Auburn has done something that you only see once in a lifetime, really. The 2018-2019 team was special.
They were.
Right, but I will tell you, I do not think they are as talented as what we're seeing Bruce Pearl has put together this year. This team has a chance to really, really make a run, and I don't know who stops them if they don't stop themselves. I
think 2019, 2018, that was a team that was a contender out of the shadows, came out of nowhere. This is a team that is fully here in the spotlight, looking like Ivan Drago, like I am an absolute contender and I can knock you out if I want.
Yeah, they're playing with the target on their back. I think the 2018, 2019 team went in as a 5 seed. Right?
That's right.
And so if you're going in as a 1 seed and you've been 6 weeks at number 1, everybody knows you're getting everybody's best shot every week, Rex. And I think it's underrated how hard it is to play with that target on your back week after week and come out with wins. Game after game. Auburn hasn't lost a game on the road in conference. Their only losses come at home to number 6 Florida. That's absolutely insane. Can you imagine this team finishing the season with 0 conference losses on the road? This
SEC is what makes the big difference. All right, we got to wrap this up, Mike. Where can people find you?
Go on over to YouTube and subscribe to us. We're The War Rapport on YouTube. And you can follow us on social media at The War Rapport on every social media platform. TW Rapport on TikTok. You can also follow me on Twitter at Mike Gittens, on Instagram as @MikeGittens_. And then, of course, Locked On UCF.
There it is.
We got some ticket controversies going on over at UCF right now. They don't want people reselling their tickets or something, but it's a big uproar. We're talking about it over on the channel. Please subscribe there as well.
All right, guys. Look, hey, for the most wonderful time of the year might be December, but for us college basketball fans, it's right about now. March Madness about to go in full gear. Mike, thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
All right, y'all. That'll do it for this War Rapport Wednesday. We'll see you next week.